welcome to the third event of this week. We from CBS Case Competition are so pleased to once again have Deloitte as one of our preferred partners. And we, of course, really hope that you will enjoy this next hour and join us for a reception outside after this, where we'll be serving cupcakes and champagne. Of course, sponsored by Deloitte. In front of you, you'll find a few snacks and a comment card where we really want you to write down any thoughts you might have, and afterwards we'll collect them in the door. So, thank you.
Yes, and if there's any questions during the entire presentation, I will be here with the microphone, or you can, if you don't want to stand in front of the entire crowd, you can write your question here in English on Twitter using this hashtag, and we will have one person overviewing that hashtag to see if there's any questions coming in. So, without further ado, I would like to give a warm welcome to the first speaker from Deloitte, his partner. Give him a big hand, Peter Milkær.
Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here to present the latest industry analysis from Deloitte regarding the fashion industry. In front of you, you have the entire analysis, and I'll just give you a brief introduction to the document, and you can read it furthermore afterwards. Why do we in Deloitte make industry analysis? Three purposes. One purpose is to serve our clients better. Everything we do, we have to do for the clients. Another thing is to attract potential new clients. We can talk business when we have an analysis. We are more relevant to new customers. So that's another opportunity to use the analysis for. Furthermore, it's to brand Deloitte as a company who we try to be a little bit different than the others, try to put a little bit of edge, making industry analysis on different industries. And furthermore, for the people in Deloitte, we try to have enthusiasts innovate new ideas, get new ideas to innovate and to try to invent new ways of talking to clients and potential clients. So that's why we make the analysis. And the introduction is that did you know that every person in Denmark uses 16 kilos of textiles every year? It's a middle-sized suitcase when you fly to the warmer areas, and you throw it away every year. That's what we produce in Denmark every year. In the past years, there has been a lot of talk about throwing away these textiles, and maybe we could get rid of the buy and throw away culture, and that's why we talk sustainable business today. And we also have this kind of edge in the analysis this year. Our analysis, we have been doing it for 7 years now, since 2008, and we have included, pretty hard to read some of the figures, but we have included 4 sub-branches from the fashion industry in the analysis this year. We try to make the analysis representative, but still it's only a snapshot of some figures put down in a report using to get closer to clients. It's not a scientific work. We have used the annual accounts published up until September, October 2013, and we have only put in companies, included companies which have 3 years of continuous reporting in the analysis. So that's in place. But why is it interesting to look into the fashion industry for Danish companies? We have not a lot of production in Denmark. It's moved out to Asia or the Baltic countries or everywhere else. But looking into this, you can see that, maybe you can see that in the left side of the diagram, you can see that 28% of the middle class throughout the world is coming from Asia Pacific. In 2030, over 60% will be from the middle class will be in the Asia Pacific. And the growing middle class is a huge opportunity to Danish companies to produce more, to sell more to these countries. And especially the BRIC countries, you know, the next 11 countries, which is the next level of countries we produce to and sell to. And in the south, in the Asian countries, it's South Korea, it's Vietnam, it's Indonesia, some of the big countries. One of the risks on producing to these countries is that there's a lot of political uncertainty. But still, it's an opportunity to Danish producers to go out there. When we look into where to go to next, looking into the top 10 export countries in Denmark, it's for example Germany and Sweden and so on. We only see into a growth in the next years for about maybe 4%, some of them declining, but 4% in an average. Looking into the emerging markets, we see into a growth rate 5 or 6 times larger than the growth rates to the top 10 export countries right now. You can see on the bottom here that the export share to emerging markets is 45% in 2010, and now it's about 50%. So we are increasing, but still, is it enough? We can say that some of the exports going to out of Denmark is actually going directly from China or from Bangladesh or from Vietnam, because it does not pass through the Danish borders, and they sell it directly out of the producing countries. And these countries, when selling in that manner, it does not go via Denmark and the Danish statistics analysis and so on. So probably more than you can see in these numbers. In the analysis, we have you can see that there's some growth in the operating margin or the EBIT ratio. It's about 3% in 2012-13. Is it okay to have an average on that? Not in my mind. Going back to 2004-6, the average growth rates were between 8 and 10%. So we are slightly behind. Looking into the liquidity ratio, some of the banks say that cash is king, and we have taught a lot of the companies in the industry to cut down on stocks and make better payment schedules for their customers. And we have a liquidity ratio at about 2 now. It's not very significant, but still it's an improvement from last year's analysis. Looking into the kind of the traffic light for the industry, we have tried to analyze the solidity. We say that below 15% is not good. Return on invested capital below 10 is not so good. When you are in this quadrant, it's about 18.7%. It's less than 2011-12, but still, it's around 20% is in the danger of going bankrupt in our point of view. As in many other matters, up and to the right is the right way to go. We have around 42% in that quadrant. Still, it's only 4 out of 10, which we conclude to be healthy in economy sense. If we look into retail shops, the prior analysis was for manufacturers and And now we go into the retail shops. The thing is that 4 out of 10 shops in Denmark had losses in 2012-13. It's a lot of businesses, and only around 60% had a profit. Going back to 2006, the numbers was 84 with profit, and only 16% had losses at that time. So also the industry is influenced by the financial crisis in general. Looking into the proportion of businesses at risk, we try to analyze analyze on the number of employees. You can see that 41% of the companies with employees with 25 to 50 employees is at risk. Maybe it's a sign that stuck in the middle is not the way where to be, the place to be. It's either small and agile and niche oriented, or it's getting on a bigger scale, get economy of scale, and be more aversive to the trends of the consumers. Looking into the retail shops, the picture is actually worse than for the producers. We see that 26% is in the risk of getting bankrupt in our terms. It's a little bit better than in 2011-12, where it was 31%. But another thing is that the EBIT ratio, the operating margin, actually in 11-12 in average was about 5%, and in 2012-13 it's dropped down to 1%. So a lot of retailers is at risk, and a lot of them is still closing down. We see a lot of bankruptcies throughout the country. We looked into the significant global megatrends influencing the industry, and we found out that these 3 things would affect and have an impact on the industry. It's the China's hunger for fashion, and the online shopping, and sustainable clothing. When we see China's hunger for fashion, there's some pretty amazing data in the left side here. 1.4 billion people in China will have doubled their income during the next 10 years. And by 2007, China will be the largest economy measured on consumers' buying power. It's a lot. And it gives a lot of opportunities to Danish companies, because in China they were very keen to look into affordable luxury, which we call it. They are a fan of Danish fashion, Nordic fashion, because it's loose fit, it's leisure, it's not very sophisticated. So there's a lot of opportunities to them. Opportunities and challenges, because of course it's hard to get into the Chinese markets, which is so big. Another thing is online shopping. When you go shopping, all of you, of course, because you're so young, you plan your buys on the internet. You get inspired on the internet, but 6 out of 10 actually go into the physical store after examining the internet. So still, we have to be multi-channel wise when dealing with retailing to the end consumer. We both have to have a very good service on the online shop and on the physical shop. And actually, looking into China, in 2010, 145 million people in China shopped online, and they in 2015 it's estimated that over 325 million will be shopping on the internet. So it's also a good opportunity. And Another way. And a sustainable business. We look into transparency is the new black, as Deloitte is the new black. Consumers is of course interested in quality and price. That should be obvious. The Conan Wolf has asked 3,000 customers in the 3 countries, and transparency and honesty is one of the really important ways of doing business, and something that you have to bear in mind when you approach the market. Especially China, 79%, which is actually overpriced, and the trademark status of the trademark is also important in China, 52%. It's pretty interesting. And when you are transparent, what do consumers expect from companies to deem them transparent? A lot of things here, but up here it's communication, communication, communication. When the shit hits the fan, when a factory in Bangladesh crashes, it's really important to go out and tell the good story and what's happened, and to be honest and to be transparent about the news, the bad news. It's about having a policy and having be prepared to answer questions and to react on reality. That was a 15 minutes brief introduction to the analysis. Now I would hand over to my colleague Bahara, expert in sustainable business. So, Bahara,
thank you.
There you are.
Thank you, Peter. Give him
Thank you very much.
First of all, it's really a great pleasure to have so many of you here. Thank you for joining us. Sustainable fashion is the main focus that we will have now for 30 minutes. And the reason is that the fashion industry is the 3rd largest polluting industry on the planet. So what we do in our consumption and how we produce our clothes have a major impact on our planet. So that's why the focus here today will be on looking at some of the major brands and how they deal with this agenda, but also look at smaller brands and how they can use this agenda to differentiate themselves in the market. And in the end of the day, you are the buyers and the consumers. So the power you have is enormous. So we want you to be involved in the dialogue. And please do ask questions on behalf of yourself to the brands, but also give us feedback afterwards if you would like to. So I have a colleague who's helping me out here to connect to one of the major global brands from H&M, headquartered in Sweden. Anna, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Great. So we are waiting for you to be on. There you are. Great. Thank you. So Anna is the social sustainability manager at the headquarters in H&M, and she will join us in a dialogue together with Viga Svensson from Catwick, the former CEO and the founder of Catwick. How many of you know Catwick? Okay. How many of you have kids that know Catwick? Oh, you know Catwick, but you don't have kids. That's really interesting. So Catwick is a children brand, a Danish brand. And Viga is now a social entrepreneur and focusing on sustainability. Please, Viga, join us. And I think you have a microphone. And then we have a representative from one of the major Danish brand house, I would say, IC company, Ken Peterson. He's a global sourcing manager from IC company. Please join us. Anna, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
So this is like the European song.
Not too loud, unfortunately.
Oh, you can't. Okay. Maybe I should move a bit closer to the computer. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Great. So now I'm supposed to say as they do in a European song contest. How is the weather in Sweden? No. Great. Fine. It's raining, right?
No, it's 25 degrees and sunny.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So what we would like to have the focus on in the dialogue is mainly 3 areas. We can discuss this forever. But the 3 main focus areas is the role and the responsibility of the major brands in this agenda, and how they see and they perceive the consumer demand. if they actually feel that you are asking for something else than you do today in the future. And the last question that I will ask the panel experts to discuss will be the future and how they see it. But I would like to start with H&M, because you are one of the major global brands. And you do have production in Bangladesh, and we did talk about Bangladesh and the collapse of the factory some time ago. And I think this is something all of us can remember. And I know, and I had promised to say that you didn't have production in that industry and that factory per se, but you do have production in Bangladesh. And you were also affected by the protesters around the world and following discussions about the minimum wage and the role you have as a company. So can you, Anna, tell us about what have you done and what is your new initiative on the wage issue?
Well, I think if we separate this into two different discussions, I think first when it comes to the Rana Plaza accident, as Bahari was saying, we did not have any production there, but even so, this was a complete devastating accident to happen in the textile industry. We have a lot of people on ground in Bangladesh, and me and my team have been there many, many times. So for us, it also had personal implications of seeing that incident unfold. Putting those personal reflections aside, I think what Rana Plaza showed is really a structural problem, which is very common in Bangladesh, where you have very poor fire and building safety standards across the industry and also outside the industry. This is a result of rapid expansion, there is a widespread corruption, there is lack of implementation of regulations when it comes to fire and building safety and so on. And this is not something that one company can tackle together. So even though we as a company see that we have a responsibility to act on issues like fire and building safety, we need to find an effective way of doing so. What actually happened after Rana Plaza was that H&M, together with the global trade unions and also a number of other brands, actually joined together, and we formed something which is called the Accord on Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh. I'm not going to go through all the details, but what it basically tries to do is to set a common standard for how fire and building safety should look like in a country like Bangladesh. It should also perform independent audits of all the factories that are covered by the members of the Accord, and it should also provide training when it comes to fire and building safety to workers and the factory management. And I think that this is really a great way of demonstrating how structural issues such as fire and building safety should be addressed by brands, but also by other stakeholders such as trade unions and governments and NGOs, etc.
So
when it comes to the issue of wages, I think it's in one way quite similar, because this is also a structural problem that we see in countries like Bangladesh and Cambodia and so on. It's not specific to H&M or to our supplier. This is an industry-wide problem, and this is something that we need to work together with a lot of different stakeholders to address. So from H&M side, we have worked with this for several years, and although we can see some positive developments in countries like Bangladesh and Cambodia, we just think that this is going too slow. So last year, we decided to speed up our own work, and we decided to set a vision for where we want to go on the issue of living wages. And we said that a fair living wage should be paid by all our commercial goods suppliers. And with a fair living wage, we mean a wage that should be covering the workers' basic needs and also be negotiated in a fair process. So after doing that, we developed a roadmap, which really is a concrete way of how we think that we can achieve this vision. And it really involves the different stakeholders that are involved in the wage issue. So first we need to look at ourselves as a brand. What can we do? Well, we of course need to make sure that the way that we purchase the products actually enable the suppliers to be able to pay a fair living wage to the workers. You may already know this, but I mean H&M, we don't have any factories of our own. We collaborate with suppliers, and they in turn employ the workers. So for us, it was really important to go and look at what can we actually do with our purchasing practices. And here we have a plan of having a more transparent way of isolating the labor costs to make sure that we never negotiate on that. We also look at how we can work with the suppliers. How can we make sure that they actually have well-functioning pay structures in place? We also look at how can the factory workers, together with the global and local trade unions and employer organizations, work to strengthen the workers' ability to negotiate and to actually have a proper social dialogue between the employers and the employees at a factory.
Okay,
and of course,
thank you for that.
that's also a very important
Can I
issue.
stop you? Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you for that. And I think it's interesting that you have initiated it by yourself, and I know that there is a larger initiative going on in your industry that IC Company is one of the first joining from Denmark. Can you tell us about how come you, as the first Danish company, joined Sustainable Apparel Coalition, which is a global initiative to address many of these issues that Anna is also pointing at? What is your expectation and why did you join in this initiative?
Actually, it's the same as Anna is talking about. I think H&M is also a member. Basically, it's for us. It's a thing on leverage bond our size. We are a relatively small company, only 500 million euros in turnover, and we are small compared to H&M, and we are also small compared to a lot of other companies. But we see this as we basically solving the problems together. As Anna is also talking about, I had the pleasure hearing Anna this morning at the Living Wage workshop at the Danish ETI. The Sustainable Apparel Coalition has a very good picture. They call it pre-competitive collaboration. Thinking me and Vika as two competitors, we are going to run a 100-meter dash, but we train together. So we improve our abilities and our capabilities before we start our competition. And I think this is a very simple and a very good way to understand the whole idea of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, that we basically work together to solve our mutual problems.
So the idea with the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, just to give you a picture, is that you have joined around 40-50% of the total industry, everything from suppliers, NGOs to the brands. And the idea is to come up with some kind of index for how to measure social and environmental impact on the production side. And the goal is, as I understand it, to find some kind of labeling that is transparent enough for us as consumers to understand the impact of the product. So is that what you are hoping for?
Basically, we are lacking a common kind of industry standard. And basically, we can say, okay, what is sustainability? If this is eco wool, no such thing as eco wool, but if I then decided to, okay, transport it by air, okay, is it still eco or what? This is this is one of the things that the Sustainable Apparel Coalition will kind of address, saying, okay, it needs to be sustainable on all parameters that you can think of, on the CO2, on the chemicals, on the suppliers' behavior, on our behavior, and how do we tell this to our suppliers? To our customers? How should they treat the garment? And this leads me to another thing about. We joined this because the idea of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition is pretty much where we want to go. We want to partner up with our suppliers. We want to partner up with our customers. We want to partner up with politicians. We want to partner up with basically all our stakeholders, including the consumers. So this is where we want to go. And as Anna, I'm really glad that you also mentioned this, Anna. Training is basically, in our point of view, the most important thing. It is training of ourselves, our designers, our buyers, our suppliers, and so on and so on.
But I can understand both from Anna's points, but also from yours. It's a very complex area.
It is.
And it's a lot of different angles in the sustainability area that you have to take into consideration. And therefore, I would like to invite you to the discussion, Vika. You decided to brand and design a whole brand on sustainability. So you decided to shortcut all this discussion and decided to actually do something about the whole agenda and taking that into your core brand. How did that work, and what was the main challenges that you faced?
I think the main challenge was actually the discrepancy between the consumer awareness and the strategy. that made it very difficult to justify the increased price toward the consumer. I guess that everybody involved in textile business can say that we do not experience a huge pull from the consumer regarding sustainability. So we have a huge discrepancy there. And that also makes it very difficult to justify a sustainable strategy towards the board and towards the bank or other stakeholders. So I guess that was the main challenge for us. Because when you're dealing with sustainability, you need a long-term perspective. That is essential and crucial. And we must say that, unfortunately, long-term perspective and fashion is kind of a paradox. Yeah. So that was a huge challenge. The biggest.
So there is a lack of this demand from consumers. Just to get some of your perspective here, how many of you actually own a cloth in your garderobe that is made sustainable, environmentally or socially? Oh, that's quite a few of you. Good. So there is a. Do you see it's a demand? Is there something that you would look for when you shop? How many of you would shop based on the fact that the product that you're buying is sustainable? Okay, fewer hands. So the two other parameters will come first, price and design. Great, thank you. So I think H&M, you have decided, or Anna, you have decided that this is a strategy that you want to pursue. And you produce and launch your sustainable collection. And I now have some internal numbers from your company. That is 45% of your consumer response that they're actively looking for sustainable fashion. So how large part of your total collection is sustainable, and how do this increased interest from consumers actually impact your future planning for your new collections?
Well, when it comes to the share of sustainable products, conscious products as we call them, that varies. I mean, we have permanent products in stores such as t-shirts and baby bodies and so on, but then we have in-store collections that we do on a regular basis. So the assortment is changing constantly, so it's difficult to set an actual number. But as you're saying, I mean, what we can see, and this is a very, very positive trend, is that there is an increasing awareness from consumers about those issues, but also an increased interest to actually purchase more sustainable products. As you were saying, 45% of the respondents we had in our survey said that they were actually looking for this. That's an increase, but I think 1 year ago it was 27%. So there's really a positive trend to be seen here. What's also interesting is that we can see that sustainability is actually something that influenced them when making the purchase. So I mean, of course, the price and the design is something that weighs higher, but after that, they actually see that if a product is sustainable, that influences their choice of purchasing the product in a positive way. So we are, of course, taking this into account when we are developing our assortment. We have responsibility in driving the demand for more sustainable products, but also to answer to the customers' increased demand for this.
Great, thank you. You see a positive trend in H&M. How about IC? Do you see a trend? Do you have new expectations from consumers?
The harsh answer is no. As we actually sold our sustainable brand Jackpot because it wasn't making any money.
Was it because it was sustainable, or is it because the financial numbers was
financial primarily?
Just to clarify, it's nothing to do with
no. And it was a pity for me and for my colleagues, because they were doing a lot of good things. But the matter of fact is, as Vika was saying, we are not experiencing a kind of a pull strategy. Jackpot also used a push strategy, saying, okay, we not force feed you with sustainable, but saying, okay, this is sustainable, it looks cool, it's made sustainable, and we will actually take a lower margin in the beginning in order for you to buy it. But apparently not because of only sustainability, but they didn't make any money, so we had to sell this brand. And I've been, as I told Vika before, that we have had a lot of kind of people phoning us up. Why are you? We kind of crossed our fingers for jackpot because they were doing a lot of good stuff, and now you're selling it. So.
But do you feel a higher expectation on your other brands? You have a lot of high-end brands. Do you see an expectation rising from consumers on those brands?
I will say this short. Also, customers are not looking for sustainable. If the design is, yes, I'm sorry, if it looks like crap, they won't buy it. So it has to look good, and then we said, okay, sustainability is on top of this or an add-on. But these two things should go together in my point of view. And I want to say one thing. I have a problem finding a suit that is sustainable. And I guess this suit here is not sustainable. I can only think of one male company doing sustainable suits. But we are working towards doing this with some of our brands.
So accessibility is also a challenge for the consumer.
It is.
Yeah. But that goes hand in hand on the strategy you have as a brand. Vigga, what is your future perspective on this? We're talking about it's a push strategy very much still. Do you think the future game for the fashion industry will change in the near future, or do you think we will just continue as we do and we will have some brands doing a bit more sustainable collections than others, and that's how it will be looked at? How do you think the future will look?
I think if we look at the near future, I think that most of the textile companies will still consider sustainability as kind of a risk management strategy, which means that it's something that you have in order to control your business, but not in order to develop your business. And I hope that within the next 5 years, we will see more and more companies using sustainability in a more fruitful way and actually implement it in the main strategy, business strategy and business model, and use it as a driver for the business and not only as a risk management thing. That's my hope, and I think that we see more and more small initiatives telling me that this is the way we are going. But at the moment, it's very, from my point of view, we are still in a very early state. It's not very advanced the way we work with sustainability today.
And what do you think about that? Is it a risk management perspective that H&M has in mind when you develop your collections and the strategy you have ahead?
Definitely not. I think that when the issue of sustainability arose 10, 15 years ago, it was very much about risk management. And I agree with Vigga that it may still be the case for some companies also in the future. But to us, this is really a way to seize business opportunities. And I think that what we have done in terms of our garment collection scheme, that has been a true proof of that. I mean, we know that the answer to the problems that we see today is not to stop consumption. Consumption is an important driver when it comes to social and economic development. But what we need to do is really to limit and minimize the negative impact it has on the environment. And that's really where we can work with closing the loop. And this is also where we have the business opportunities. I mean, we have seen that already by doing this in 1 year, having a global garment collecting scheme, we have gathered more than 4,000 tons of unwanted waste and fabric from our customers. And we have now actually started to launch our own products that are being made from fibers from those garments that we have recycled. So we can really see great opportunities in this, and that this is what we think definitely the best way in order to minimize the negative effects of consumption.
So you don't see, so for you it's more than the risk management perspective. You
Definitely,
see
this is about seizing opportunities.
Yeah. And I can hear from IC company that you don't see the demand, and therefore this is a more risk management perspective for your company. Or is that going to change in the future?
It has changed for us. We talk about this license to operate. If you don't behave, if your stakeholders is not behaving and your value chain is not behaving sustainable, then you will lose your license to operate. This is how we see it, but we also see with the HIG index a way to facilitate sustainable products. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years it will still be a push thing.
If we look at the longer future, say 10 years from now, what do you think would be the 3 top demands from consumers?
As I said before, the design will still matter. But also I see, as Peter was also talking about, transparency. Our consumers will request transparency, and so they should, in my point of view. But I also think we will see a lot more questions. How do we behave? Why are we organized like this? So I think the transparency will also feed a lot of new questions and hopefully a lot of new ideas. Sustainable Apparel Coalition, I want to say this also because this is also it's American organization, so they have a lot of these catchphrases. But they said that the apparel was the first industrial revolution. They want to also have the next one, which should be the sustainable revolution. And we basically want to be part of this because we want to maintain our license to operate.
Vigga, do you agree? Do you think it would be the top three consumer demands in the future, or would you also look at other business models as being a new emerging in the market?
I think and hope that we will see some revolution in the business models for the next decade regarding circular economy or closed loop systems
and what would that
and things
mean
like
in
that.
clothing? I mean, if you're not aware
in clothing, that Anna, she came with a very good closed loop example that you go down and deliver your old H&M clothes in your local H&M shop, and then they take it back and make new clothes out of it. That's a closed loop, and that makes sense in many ways. I think that we will see also because of the lack of raw materials. So it's also a bit of a risk management thing, but it's a clever idea that we will see a lot of closed loop ideas, and in general we will see many new many new consuming models, I think. So it's not new collections every month and consuming the way we do today, but a more clever way to do it.
a different way of consumption.
A different way of consumption, a bit more advanced than the way we consume today, I hope.
Is there any questions for the three brands or experts? Everything is so clear. Yes, you have a question here. Can I have the microphone? I think it's something with recording, without knowing. I think that's Please.
Hi. I was just wondering, I know that there's been an initiative to sort of, we have these labels in our clothes where it says this is 90% cotton, to have sort of how sustainable your clothes are. But it never really hit the fashion industry or really hit us consumers. Do you think that's a possibility? Is it totally dead? Is it a way to go?
I think that's a part of the Higg Index initiative, but yes, please.
Yeah, let me just come with a brief comment, because it's kind of funny that clothing is one of the only consumer goods that has no declaration inside. I mean, you cannot look at the declaration and say, okay, it contains some harmful chemical that I'm allergic to. You can when you buy stuff at the grocery. So it's kind of strange that you cannot see what's inside the clothing. So that could be a very interesting thing, and something that I personally have discussed with many politicians, and they like the idea, of course, but they see it as very complicated thing. But the Higg Index is one of the aims is to make this complexity into a very simple declaration, you could say.
Yeah. The aim of the Higg Index, basically take, okay, this pullover, where is it produced? How is this supplier scoring in his index, and so on and so on? How many chemicals are used? How are we transporting it? Then transforming it into a number between 0 and 100, and then this should be the Higg Index for you. But you are pretty, impatient, because there's a long way to go. Nike had their tool, and the Sustainable Apparel Coalition are working on making this consumer-facing. But there's a lot of problems or challenges, if you may. Who is to validate these things, and if it's not validated, can we trust it, and so on and so on. But
what you are saying is that it's coming in the future.
It is coming. This is also one of the reasons why we joined the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, because we want this common standard for all to use, saying, okay, this is 42, so okay, 42, I can find one over here with, I don't know, 86, I will buy this one.
Before we have a Twitter question, Anna, H&M is also, of course, a part of Sustainable Apparel Coalition. What do you think about that in the future? Will that be something consumer-facing that would be important for you?
Yeah, I think I can only echo what has already been said. I mean, we see that transparency is definitely a key issue for consumers in the future, and from our perspective, the Higg Index is definitely a response to that. I think there is a challenge in making those kind of complex data and that complex information accessible and available to customers in an easy way, but the aim from H&M side is definitely that Higg Index should be transformed into a consumer-facing index that should enable customers to make better choices.
Great, and hopefully we'll have a lot of audits from external parties, so Peter and myself can do a lot of job, and hopefully some of you as well. I have a Twitter question from some of you in here.
We actually have two questions on Twitter, both for H&M. The first one is, which challenges have you experienced when communicating your CSR initiatives to the consumer?
Anna, did you hear that?
No, can you please repeat that again?
So which challenges have you faced when you communicate CSR initiatives towards your consumers?
That they don't listen. No, but I think, there is a big problem with trying to come across with the good things that we as a brand is doing. I think that in general there is a mistrust from consumers against the industry of textile, because a lot of course, because of the picture that media is giving. So I think for us, that has been challenging, trying to prove that we're actually doing the right things, and that when it comes to issues such as fire and building safety and wages, those things take time, and it's difficult to communicate any quick fixes. We have very good partners that we are working together with, and we see that by working together with them and also making them involved in our work, that's a good way to communicate as well. But trying to get complex messages across and also to feel trustworthy to our customers, I think that's one of the main challenges that we've had.
Thank you. The second?
We just got another question. I'm not sure if it was directed at anyone in particular. Maybe IC companies would like to answer. The question is, shouldn't sustainability be a strategy incorporated in all aspects of the corporation and not a reaction to customer demands?
Do you have any response?
Sorry, I didn't get the first part.
Shouldn't sustainability be a strategy incorporated in all aspects of the corporation and not a reaction to customer demands?
I had one of my questions before coming here was if we feel any pressure. We don't do it from consumers, as I said. We do it for our business customers, and we do it for from our investors. We are a public company, so it gives our department a leverage that our investors have started to have an interest in sustainable things and way of doing things. So my answer is yes, obviously, but probably not my CEO yet.
Yeah. Yes. Vigga, do you have any reflections on that?
No, from my point of view, sustainability is a holistic thing that you cannot just, pinpoint the thing you would, the small focus area that you would prefer to put all your effort in. So of course, sustainability is about every part of your business.
And you would do it from whom? If you don't have the consumer demand, who would you do it for? What would be the driver of doing that implementation?
From my own personal point of view, it would be the long-term perspective telling me that this is a clever idea from a business point of view, acting responsible, both in order to keep the good working force working for me and not for my competitor, but also in order to react to the consumer pull when it will come.
Yeah. A question here, 2 questions here.
So, hello, I'm Italian, so I'm just looking from the Italian perspective. So I wanted to be a little bit critical on the fashion industry. So I don't know much about it because maybe a guy so have different views on it. But is it very sustainable to pay David Beckham and all these players millions just to represent you? Like maybe also H&M. I know that you've seen him many times just in underwear. He looks good, but he costs a lot. So maybe you should take this money and maybe invest more in a sustainable project. Secondly, I see from the Italian perspective, I'm sure it's not here in Denmark, but if I see the Italian models or something like that with the fashion industry, and so what I see is lack of, they're very poor they're not so professional, like they're very poor. It's a lot of creative industries, but they don't have a lot on scales when it comes to management scales, they're very poor. And secondly, I think also they're promoting an image which is not true about girls and women. I mean, when I see these models, I want to go there with a plate of pasta and say, please eat.
Thank you. So your question, if I can interpret what you say, is if this agenda is a brand agenda. Is it something we do because it's a good branding? And I think the modeling
it's maybe
was
2 questions. It's like the message
Yeah.
Italian fashion industry that gives to youngers people is that you have to weigh 46 kilo and be 1.82 m. That's not possible.
Yeah.
Secondly, why do you pay so much like footballers or something like that? Could that be not cut down?
Okay. I think I will divide them a bit. So the branding discussion, is this a branding, is this a good branding? Anna?
You mean sustainability?
Yeah?
Well, I think of course there are brand aspects to it, but that's definitely not the reason why H&M is engaged in sustainability. And I think we touched upon that just recently in the other question. I mean, as I said before, this is really about business opportunities. We see that this is a way for us to manage the resource constraints that we will be facing in the future, for example. We know this is valued by customers and by our staff, but it's definitely a way to put ourselves in the forefront and to be able to face the demands that we will see in the next decade to come. So it's definitely not about branding only.
No. And when you were running Kadevik, that was a very, very big part of your brand. So is that, as we hear from our friend here, is that something that was the main focus, that you should use sustainability as the brand strategy, or was it a lot other things around it?
There was a lot of other things around it. As I just said before, it was a holistic strategy.
Yeah.
So
was it a good brand strategy?
it was definitely a good brand strategy, and I'm sure that every company dealing with sustainability, they do it also from a branding point of view, because it's a good branding thing.
Yeah.
And especially if you're dealing with kidswear, as I was in Katwijk, it was a good storytelling element, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second question about the models, can we come back to that? Because I think that will summarize it in the end. We had one more question.
Hello, I have a question to Anna at H&M, and it's regarding, I bought a hoodie at H&M for 100 krona recently, and I actually returned it because the quality was so bad. And I was wondering if that price can ever cover all the sustainable facts like wages and quality and eco-production.
Did you hear that?
Can you please repeat it again, Bahare?
So we have a friend here who bought a hoodie in H&M and she returned it because the quality was so bad, and it was only cost 100 kroner. And the question is if that price could cover the sustainability aspect of that product.
Well, I think that there is a general misconception that because products are sold at a low retail price, that would mean that you're compromising on sustainability, and that is definitely not the case. I mean, when it comes to H&M, for instance, we produce our garments at the same factories as many other high street brands, but also many other premium brands. So whatever is the products that are retailed for in stores, they are produced by the same garment workers, they are making the same money every hour. So I definitely don't think that the price that you see in store is a reflection of the sustainability behind it. Of course, what can differ then will be maybe the textile or the actual fabric that is being used in the product. That can be a difference between different brands, but not when it comes to sustainability.
So you mean it's possible to produce something that is 100 kronor and is sustainable?
Sorry, what were you saying?
So what you are saying, it is possible to produce something that costs 100 kronor and it is still sustainable?
Yes.
So as a consumer, I would then ask, why don't you do it all the time? Well, isn't that the obvious question?
When it comes to sustainability, I mean, for example, how we work with our suppliers, we say that these are the requirements that we place on you in terms of wages and working hours and etc., etc. And this is the price that we expect you, or this is what we then expect you to include in the price. So for us, this is just basically how we do business. Then there are a lot of structural issues that we're talking about, such as the issue of wages and fire and building safety that require much more than what we as a lone brand can do in order to have real impact. And that, of course, means that you need to work in a different way, not only with your sole suppliers. But the strategy that we have is that we put demands on our suppliers, and they are the suppliers that produce for the same brands as you can see on the high streets in other areas.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a question here from the middle and one here. Yes, please.
Thank you. My question is regarding this holistic view that you're talking about. Have you thought about the employees that make up a big part of the value chain, how they can affect the optimization of sustainability? And if you have any future initiatives for the employees, how they can be more involved and engaged in this process?
And when you say employees, you mean the employees in the brand?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Viga has some thoughts around that.
Well, I haven't got any employees at the moment, so I haven't got any so
they are very involved.
Future initiatives. But of course, I mean, actually, one of the biggest challenges when you are, especially when you started with sustainability 10 years ago, as I did, was actually convincing or selling the strategy to the employees, because it made their life much more difficult from one day to another, starting to produce and work in a sustainable company. So therefore, it was very important that they understood why we should act sustainable. So selling the idea and getting the employees involved in the strategy is a key thing, definitely. And my own experience was definitely that we only became a much better sustainable company by involving the employees. Yeah.
Was that an answer to your question? Great. We have another question here.
Yes, so for me, fashion and sustainability maybe be kind of opposite. So, because fashion is ever changing and sustainability is for a long time. Okay. My question is,
Yes.
Yeah, are they taking any initiatives from the companies, or is it even in the interest of the companies to make fashion last longer?
Great question. I see company. Is it your interest to do a durable design, long-term fashion? Can you combine fashion?
I'm just thinking what clothes I'm wearing here, because I usually, you're right, the single most important thing to sustainability is longevity. For how many years and decades do you have the clothing item? So we produce good quality clothes, so we hope that you buy it and have it for a lot of years, and when you need some more, or you need a new one, you come into our shops again, because it is a very good quality.
But we must admit it is a paradox.
Yeah, it is.
Anna, what is your thoughts on that? You're working for a fast fashion company, you have a lot of collections per year. How is that corresponding to the agenda of sustainability?
Well, I think what we discussed previously, the opportunity to actually work with closing the loop and making sure that garments should, of course, be used for as long as possible, but once they are consumed, that they are handed in and that we can then reuse the fibers and sort of put that into our coming collections. I think that's really what we are aiming to work with in the future with regards to this. And that's really where we can also see that innovation, although we haven't come as far as we would like to, is really moving up. So the denim collection that we have now with some products that are being made from recycled fibers from the garment collection is a great example of that.
Yeah, thank you. And just the last question on the garment collection, Anna. How big of success was the program last year when you introduced it to the market?
It was actually a great success. We did a pilot in Switzerland the year before just to see what kind of effects could we assume and so on. So far, we've seen a great interest from consumers. I think around 30% of our consumers are aware of that we have this global initiative. And as I said before, we managed to collect more than 4,000 tons of garments so far. I think this is also about changing customers' behaviors, and that takes some time. It's the same thing as going to the store and recycle your PET bottles. It's not something that people would do within a month's time, but with time, those consumer behaviors can really be changed, and we can see some positive signs of that already.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us from Stockholm. Say hi to everyone there.
I definitely will. Thank you so much.
And give a hand to Anna in Stockholm. And also a hand to Viga and Ken joining us here in Copenhagen. I can really hear myself sounding like a Eurovision Song Contest introducer here. So the last slide we want to like to show you to just sum up this agenda in the fashion industry. As you already have noticed, there is a lot of different dimensions in the industry when it comes to sustainability. And I have brought just one slide to just give you a summarize on the different angles of this in the industry. And I will take these away. You didn't see them. So I was hoping to get this as a loop, but there was a lot of pictures, so I couldn't get them on one page. So that's why it is this straight line. But you can imagine it is a loop. You can see it, right? So if you see it as a loop and you go through the whole value chain of the fashion industry and the production, the design phase is actually one of the key phases. So if you can engage the designers, and back to your question, engagement of your internal employees, you can design materials that could be read apart afterwards, and you can reuse them. You can design durable clothes, and you can design multiple functional clothes, which meaning you can use this as something else with zippers. And one example of a brand, actually Danish brand, who's doing that quite a lot, is Knowledge Cotton Apparel. I don't know how many of you who know them. They produce menswear, very much going into both raw material, reused material, but also in the durable design. The second part is something that you already are very much aware of, is the whole production of the raw materials. So what kind of raw materials do you use, what water consumption, and as many of you already might know, the cotton is one of the most water-heavy growth in our planet. So that's where we use most water in production of cotton. Animal welfare, fertilizers, and then you have the whole production. And this is maybe where we hear most in the media. Buildings, child labor, salaries, waste, and so on. And then you have the whole transportation side. And you have procurement, lead time. So if you are a company like Zara, who's have a lot of different collections in a year, very, very short lead times, that puts a lot of pressure on the whole value chain, which is a major issue for the production. And when you come to retail, you have the whole shop and how the shop is set up, the energy used, the conditions, working conditions for the employees, and so on. And on the consumption side, we have been touching on a lot of topics there, but how we, or they as brands, communicate to us as consumers, how much transparency. The whole issue of models, I would say, goes in here. What kind of role models do they create in their communication? And how much trust is in their marketing, the way they put their clothes. And the last part is the recycling, reusing, and the waste issue. So if we discuss the sustainability agenda in this industry, you will have all these different angles of it. And you can do, as some brands do, only focus on some few parts, or you can take a holistic perspective and build the whole entire brand upon this approach. Just to summarize that this is a very wild area or field, and of course we haven't been around the whole topic. Is there any questions? Anyone sitting with something they really, really would like to ask? Okay. We will also have this continuous dialogue on Facebook, so if there is anyone who come up with this great idea or a discussion that you would like to have, we could continue that. Great. I have 2 announcements. The first one is that we have a winner. I hope the winner is here. So the winner of this prize will receive 2 tickets to the Copenhagen Fashion Summit, which is the global largest event for sustainable fashion in Copenhagen in April. And that person is Dide Husband. Are you here? Dide? Oh, she's not here. And no one who wants to be named Dide for 5 minutes? No. Okay, then I have a second winner. Hopefully he's here. Ann-Sophie Madsen. Are you here? And no one who wants to be named Ann-Sophie at this moment. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. What about Luke Russell or Russell? Russell. Yeah, Luke? He's in my class. But he's not here. Ah. He's not here. It's going back to that trust thing. Yeah. Olivia Lindberg. That sounds really Swedish. Or maybe that was my pronunciation. Olivia? Are we sure there are students here? Yeah. Okay. Matilde Rieger. Or, yeah? Woo! Tack, vi ses där. Ja. Yeah, and just before you go, just come down again so you get the tickets. Otherwise, that is not a ticket. Okay, and this is the second announcement. 2 winners. Are you here? Sophie and Jakob? Yeah? Give them a big hand. And we want to encourage you to buy sustainable clothes. So therefore you get vouchers for H&M. And I hope you will use them only on their sustainable collection. Is that okay to say? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you for joining us. Have a great day and be in touch if there is any questions.